Hey there, so I wanted to give you guys another cool little idea tonight. So today I want to talk about kind of creating unconventional pentatonic scales that you can use to come up with some really interesting type sounds. So just to begin with, just to kind of review with what most people think of when they think of pentatonic scales, um, they tend to think of the classic, minor pentatonic shape, any position, and that scale could also be functioning as a major pentatonic scale depending on the harmonic context. For example, that was an A minor, but if you play a C chord, and especially if you start on the C, it kind of functions like a C major pentatonic scale. But that's the one that people are familiar with. And not only are pentatonic scales, um, there's only 5 notes and they're easy to play, and a lot of people start with learning scales like that, and they're easier, but they're also very effective and they work great. And there's a reason why so many people use pentatonic scales. And in my opinion, I think it has to do with the fact that, like I say before, sometimes in music, in terms of what notes you're using to express a certain harmony, it's not necessarily about what notes you're playing, but what notes you're leaving out as well. And if you look at the regular shape for a minor pentatonic scale, most people know that if you looked at the three minor modes that are from a major scale, which are Dorian, Phrygian, and Aeolian, if you look at the root position scale pattern for that on the guitar, most people know that the pentatonic scale is embedded within that, and it's really just a shell of a more complete scale. And that's the thing. Technically speaking, anytime you're playing a pentatonic, you can think that, oh, you're actually technically maybe playing a Dorian, Phrygian, or Aeolian scale too, but you're just leaving out some notes. But it's easier to think about it as its own scale. And like I said, in my opinion, the fact that you are leaving out certain notes is what gives the pentatonic scale a specific sound or flavor to it. So basically, that's the traditional one that we all know, but you can take this concept to come up with your own pentatonic scales and see how they can work in certain situations and come up with some really neat flavors if you really, just look around. So the way that I want to show you how I'm doing this today is basically you're going to create a pentatonic scale by taking any 2 triads you want. And just to review, when we're talking about triads, there's only 4 triads. It can either be a major triad, a minor triad, diminished, or augmented. But you can pick any 2 triads that you want. There's only one requirement, and that requirement is that whatever 2 triads you pick, they have to have one and only one overlapping note in them. And the reason why is because typically, obviously, triads have 3 notes in them, and if they have one overlapping note, that means you have a total of 5 notes, which will give you a pentatonic scale. Okay? So, again, like I always do, I like to give you one example, and once you kind of get the concept, you can explore it as far as you want. So, the example that I want to show you today is going to be created from taking 2 major triads that are basically sharp 5 or a minor 6 apart, okay? And I'm going to do it in the key of E flat. So if the first triad is E flat, then the second triad is going to be B, both major triads, okay? So the thing is, a lot of people, they actually already experiment a lot with different triad type pairs. But a lot of times when they do that, for example, say you have like a E Dorian type, or why not? E Dorian, and they know that they have like the E minor triad and the F sharp minor triad. So the way they will kind of play around with those 2 pairs, a lot of times I think what they end up doing, and there's nothing wrong with this, but they tend to play those triad pairs in a way where they're kind of clearly stating both triads, like one and then the other, and kind of going back and forth. But what I want to show you here is kind of take more of a scalar approach to it, so it doesn't necessarily sound like 2 different triads and more like a scale. So back to the example we had before with the E flat major triad and the B major triad. Basically what you want to do is you just want to arrange those notes in sequential order. So you have a an ascending scale. And if you do that, you have this, and you can take it as far as you can. So this is a really neat example. I think it has a nice flavor to it. And basically, just to kind of show you some applications, the beauty about creating pentatonic scales like this is that they're being built from two original triads. So harmonically, those two triads, things that relate to those two triads are probably where it's going to function. So we're going to focus more on E flat, and you can explore the B possibilities if you want. But if you have E flat, first of all, even if the chord is just a straight up E flat chord, you could use this in your soloing because it still has all the regular notes of an E flat major triad, and it's got some other interesting ones in it too. So all it's going to do is kind of give you some neat flavors. So even just an E flat major chord, you could use this over. But if you do look at the other intervals, I mean, if this is the root, you have a sharp 9, the major third, the 5th, flat 13 or sharp 5, and that's it, and then the octaves. So you have like two alter notes. You got like a sharp 5 and a sharp 9. So because you do have some alter notes, it will probably work even better over some sort of altered dominant chord, which also has the major triad within it. So basically, say you have like a E flat 7 type jam, which I have this little loop here, you can totally use this over that. Like to do it like the way I just did it at the end there, just kind of doing these nice little fast runs up. It really kind of has a nice unique flavor to it, I think. Okay, now one other sort of use that you can do with this that I actually think that this sounds the coolest is this. You see, I showed you how you can basically use it over the regular major chord but also a dominant chord, but let's say you had a scenario where you did have a minor chord, and let's make it like E flat minor, you could still use this if you just know your theory. Basically, all you have to understand is if you have a minor chord, what major chord basically relates to it. So you can just basically think relative major and minor. So essentially, say we had an E flat minor thing, okay? Because I recorded another loop that's an E flat minor. If E flat is the minor, the relative major is G flat, okay? So basically, if we have an E flat minor scenario, basically you can use this same scale, but just in the key of G flat. I'm sorry. Okay? And when you do that over a minor context, I think it sounds really cool. So this is more of like a minor tonality. Sorry. Really cool sound to it. So, little things like that. And again, it's just one idea. It's great stuff, because it's basically, if you look at it from a harmonic context, it's just another sound or just another flavor that you can use and add to your harmonic vocabulary, and it's great for lead stuff. So, again, it's actually a really simple concept. You just take two triads that have one overlapping note in them, and like I said, they could be like, one could be major, one could be minor if you want. I just happen to pick two major triads, and work it out in a sequential order, and then try and discover what sort of functions you could use it as. And like I said, with the context we had before, I showed you, when it was E flat major, you could use it over that, but you could also use this if you had like a B major chord as well, because it has the B major triad in that. So for any pentatonic scale that you're making here, because it's being created by two different triads, will automatically have two main harmonic functions right off the bat, relating to whatever those two triads are. So just some cool stuff, some interesting things that you could explore, and yeah, that's about it. So enjoy.